This machine, it's a CPAP for sleep apnea, is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they want to keep a lot of natural alternatives away from you. That's why I'm going to share 5 simple changes that freed me from sleep apnea and from relying on a CPAP. We're going to reveal the secrets about breathing mechanics, stress, your circadian rhythm, nutrition, and environmental factors because these are the real keys to beating sleep apnea. And what makes these factors so powerful is that they don't just cover up the symptoms like a CPAP. Instead, they get to the root of the problem. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to give away a free guide that will allow you to make the most out of this game-changing information. In understanding the first factor of breathing, it's important to share the personal story that I went through. So here I am. If you've never had the pleasure to have a picture of yourself while a video of yourself on the same screen, trust me, it is a exhilarating experience. But nonetheless, here's not just one, but 4 total pictures of me. Here's me really, really tired about 10 years ago, going through a sleep study, trying out a CPAP, all these different things. And in fact, here is my sleep study showing you going from pretty bad, 25.7, that would be in the moderate range, down to 3, where sleep apnea magically disappears. And one day you'll be able to have that awkward conversation with your doctor of how this disease that can never go away magically disappeared. The short story for me is I was absolutely struggling every single day. I was waking up like every 90 minutes, gasping for air, heart pounding, take time to fall asleep, and just keep cycling through that and had to go through my days pretty much looking like this. Where 3, 4 cups of coffee, it might as well have been water. It was doing nothing for me, and I could barely think straight. And I would tell myself, it's not that bad. And like so many of you, I just kept pushing and kept pushing, try different things, right? Tried out a CPAP, a mouth guard, and anything else you can get on Amazon for like 10 bucks. But it all came one day where in a research lab, I royally screwed up an experiment. I'm talking about completely botching the whole thing. My lack of focus, my ability to keep things straight, think clearly, completely destroyed one of the experiments that I was working on in grad school. Not a good scenario for me, research lab, or anyone else. That's when I really started to dive into what the heck is going on with sleep apnea and researching everything I could. And I asked myself this core question. If sleep apnea is a breathing problem, why not work directly on my breathing? Sounds crazy, right? Because it doesn't involve a leaf blower, known as a CPAP, or jamming plastic in your mouth. What if we actually change how we breathe? Because as I learned, and I'll talk about later, this is the big problem. You're breathing too fast, pulls those weak muscles into the airway, then you stop breathing. So if I slow down my breathing, it should stay open. And that's how I came into this idea of resetting my breathing. And how it works is with an exercise. We'll just talk about one very basic one. There's loads of them that you can do. But the basic premise is that your breathing is too fast, and we want to do things that slow it down so that automatically you rewire how your brain and your diaphragm and other breathing muscles work. It rewires it so you fall nice in the middle. So you're getting back to a normal, slow, steady breathing pattern at night. You can do it with something as simple as this box breathing, where you do 4 seconds all around, inhale, hold, out, hold, or 5 seconds. The more time you spend in a pause where you're holding your breath, the more effective it's going to be. And the first night I tried exercises like this, I literally thought someone drugged me because I slept through the night. I woke up and I was like, what is this light coming through the window? Is that like a helicopter? No, it was the sun. I wasn't used to sleeping through the night, and that's what happened after the first night. I want to be very realistic. That may not happen for you. You may have gradual improvements. You may go for 2 weeks and then it clicks. But the thing is, this reset my breathing and keep my airway open. And then from there, my next initial question was, why the heck was a CPAP like the only option given to me? That's what I was told in the office. That's what you've been told as well. So you get told you have sleep apnea, and this is the beautiful, enticing, dare I say, sexy destiny for the rest of your life to wear one of these with a nice, brilliant tube to bed every single night. That's no way to live life, okay? It's not. But why the heck would my doctor not know about something as simple as this? Of being something that's helpful. I'm not saying completely reverses everything, but being helpful. Why was that not mentioned? And it comes down to when medicine took the wrong turn. As a brief history, back in the 50s, which was actually before Star Wars, think about that, a long time ago in the same galaxy that we're in right now. In 1953, one guy researching sleep apnea found that breathing fast at night would lead to episodes of apnea. By hyperventilating someone, making them breathe fast, their airway would close shut. And this idea that airway inspiration triggers the collapse of the airway, this is the theory still holding to this day. The reason this is important because all the different causes of sleep apnea, whether it's your adenoid, your nose, your uvula, your tongue, whatever, they all lead to a functionally more narrow airway that is the equivalent of breathing through a straw as shown here. And when you were younger and if someone tried to dissuade you from smoking cigarettes, they probably made you breathe through a straw. At least I did, and that worked. So congratulations. And what happens is you have to breathe faster to get the same amount of air because you have a more narrow airway. So to wrap up this brief history on obstructive sleep apnea, at that moment in time, they knew there was this faster breathing pattern, and that was the cause of it. However, they didn't know what the heck to do about it. And that's what led them down this road of first cutting a hole in your throat and then ultimately leading to the CPAP. So this is why my doctor was not able to tell me, oh, there's other exercise or things you can do that I'm about to share. And that's why a CPAP was given to me as the only option because medicine was at this crossroads. Treat the causes or Band-Aid, CPAP. That's where we are. But addressing the root cause is not as simple as just doing a couple rounds of breathing exercises before bed. In fact, when I start to do this, I start to feel good, and then things start to slowly almost backslide. I was back into a place where I was hitting a wall, back to relying on caffeine, not able to really do anything meaningful in the day besides just do work, and I was just going backwards despite me making this initial improvement. So I was hitting a wall, but then I realized, like, wait, you found one way to improve your breathing. There has to be more. Because breathing is such a fundamental process, there has to be so many different things in our biology that affect it. So I dove into the books, learning as much as I could, and started to try to find as many different things as I could. I felt like I was going crazy at the time, as shown here. But the thing is, when you're making these new discoveries and it all starts to connect and you get the results, that's where things get really exciting. And one of the big things that I discovered was that our bodies, when we have sleep apnea, it is like a house fire. It is on fire, falling apart, and that's because of all the inflammation that's going on. And that brings us to the second big factor. First factor was breathing. That makes sense. You don't need 3 PhDs to understand that one. Now, for this one, you still don't need 3 PhDs, but what you need to understand is that nutrition and how it's connected to inflammation in your body is so, so important. So, what happens is at night, you have these sleep apnea events, it leads to inflammation, it depletes you of micronutrients, and then you're forced to sugar burn. And then all of these actually lead to more sleep apnea events. Because if your airway is inflamed, it's more narrow, harder to breathe. If you don't have certain micronutrients, it is going to lead to dysfunction in your breathing. And if you're forced to be a sugar burner, that will lead to irregularities in your blood sugar levels at night, which again will hurt breathing. So all of these come together in this vicious cycle of sleep apnea and inflammation and bad micronutrient status and sugar burning. And so to target this, one of the best ways I've talked about in other videos here and give you a brief overview here is to increase dietary protein and also to reduce inflammatory foods, whether that is dairy, gluten, etc. These are going to be some of the easiest ways to start plugging in these holes of the nutritional demands of someone with sleep apnea. Now, I know a lot of people, they've already watched some of my nutritional videos. Maybe you haven't, you can do that next. But I also want to give you an exclusive thing each and every single video because I got your back. So one of the most important things to know is that nitric oxide is critically important for someone with sleep apnea. It's a molecule made in our cells that leads to airways getting bigger, going from small to big. That's what we want because then that takes you from a narrow straw to a bigger straw, and then it is easier to breathe more slowly and your airway is able to stay more open. So nitric oxide we want. However, you just can't like inject it. That would be kind of bad. But you can eat certain foods that are high in nitric oxide. I'm not going to read all these things. If you want to pause the video, look at this, take a screenshot, because we are just moving like a freight train. And I know a lot of people say already like, oh, I make diet changes. It helps a lot with my sleep apnea. Just to give you the research from Harvard Medical University, I think that's a reputable place. I don't know. But they looked at the effect of an anti-inflammatory diet. It led to a 24% reduction in sleep apnea severity. So when I applied that for myself, that's when things start to really click into place for me. Changed up my diet, and that allowed me to have better energy during the day, and my sleep was better, and things were moving back in the right direction because I was plugging the holes in my biology that sleep apnea had left behind. And the beauty of this approach and using those 2 lifestyle tips and the 3 more we got coming up, this is what allows you to have progress. Because with a CPAP, a mouth guard, anything like that, you don't have progress. It either works or it doesn't, or you hassle around with the machine and like you're sleeping with an alligator and always losing. Well, I guess the alligator's not eating you, so that's a positive, but let's not settle for that as our standard of living. And the thing is, a CPAP was actually meant to be a temporary solution. So this is the Prime Minister of Malaysia. It's actually not, but I'm just trying to make sure that you're aware and still watching and not just zoning out. This is Colin Sullivan, who made the CPAP, invented it, and actually invented it for his dog. I'm not sure if he was trying to help his dog or trying to help his patients, but nonetheless, he took a vacuum more or less, put some tubing on it, helped his dog snore less, and now here we are. That's actually what happened. And when asked about this in an interview, you can go look up this paper later, but what he said was that CPAPs were always intended to be a temporary physical therapy measure and not a permanent solution. And the reason for this is that when you use a CPAP, you may feel better. And the moment you stop using it, you feel worse. That's literally what a crutch is. And the real reason for this, because obviously Colin Sullivan was very well intentioned in what he was doing as a physician researcher. Now, what happens is when these inventions or these insights get in the hand of the medical industry, and the dirty little secret, that's not really a secret, is that a patient cured is a customer loss. And that's why it's a good gig if you can get it being on the executive board of ResMed, whether you want to make 3 million a year, if you want to make 14 million a year as the CEO. And that's fundamentally why a CPAP is something that keeps you dependent. It keeps you hooked on it. And that's why it's important to be able to actually target the root issue with these different insights. We talked about breathing, we talked about nutrition, and now for the next one. And now this next one, the third one, is all about our body's rhythm. Because for myself, when I started to have good days and good days, then I would have bad days, and I would get into this cycle of where I didn't sleep well at night, and then I would sleep a little bit later, maybe take a nap later in the afternoon. It would hurt my sleep, and then my sleep actually would get worse that night. And I always wondered, like, well, why is that? Yes, it's because I had to delay when I sleep, but even just looking at the quality of that sleep, just at a different time, it was always way worse when I tracked and measured what was going on. So I was like, what the heck is that about? What I learned was that our body has something known as a circadian rhythm. All that means is that there is a best time in your body to do everything. Now, there's only one exception about this, and this is something that's highly being researched right now. And what they're finding is that watching my videos is good at any time. That's actually a scientific fact that just hasn't been written down or researched in any way or capacity. Again, just making sure you're still here, not falling asleep on me. So with circadian rhythm, again, the timing of everything in your body. And you get stuck into these cycles, and sleep apnea will actually completely destroy your body's circadian rhythm. Now, this is important not only for sleep quality, but also your breathing and the ease in which you can breathe and how easy it is to keep your airways open and not snore and everything else. That has a circadian rhythm as well. And that's why for myself or also with our clients, if I'm seeing that they're sleeping and they're going to bed at midnight, they almost always have worse numbers, even though it's the same quantity of sleep. The quality changes based on your circadian rhythm. So that's why you want to be able to realign your circadian rhythm. It's that simple. You have a stronger rhythm, you have slower breathing, better sleep quality, better night of sleep, better rhythm, so on and so forth. That's what lifts you out of the vicious cycle of fatigue. And doing this is as simple as just programming your circadian rhythm. There's a lot of different factors, the timing of food, when you exercise, everything else. When you watch this video, one of the most important signals is light or the lack thereof. Now, a recent research study about bright light therapy for CPAP resistant obstructive sleep apnea patients, what they found was that bright morning light, as you can see here by this person who looks like they're pretending to be in Lion King for themselves, bright morning light reduces sleepiness and depressive symptoms very early on. But all you have to do is be like this person, go outside, and even drag someone along with you to take a picture for Instagram, which will actually enhance the effectiveness several fold. Now, I'm just joking about that last part, but what wasn't a joke for me is when I got my rhythm in order with doing this, getting my morning light, and many other factors, because everyone has their own individual circadian rhythm, that's what allowed me to continue that reignition of my progress and results, and especially making the mornings a lot more clear and less of a drag in a huge, huge way. That's what I started to have for myself. As we go through this, we've gone through 3 major factors: your breathing, nutrition, your rhythm, and we got 2 more with your environment and also your nervous system. But when we've already found 3, we have to ask ourselves, why doesn't your doctor know anything about this? Nothing. I already gave you 3 things. There's 2 more. And honestly, if you could tolerate it, I could probably give you 1,000. It would just be like a 9-hour video that no one would want to watch. But why doesn't your doctor know a single thing about this? It's because of this triangle. It is the triangle of this axiom of a patient cured is a customer lost. You see, when there's any sort of innovation that's highly profitable in medicine, like a CPAP, this is what insurance will now cover. As a result, and this is important because this may scare you about modern healthcare, there are many times in a hospital where doctors who have gone to medical school and residency, they are talking to someone from an insurance company if they can do a treatment or not for a patient. Welcome to modern healthcare with insurance as the middleman. Thus, health insurance will actually dictate what is practiced. That's what happens in clinical practice. What is paid for? You're not going to use things that no one's going to actually pay for and use. You just won't. And then as a result, what is practiced is what is researched. That's because they want to be able to innovate and then have new things to back up with research to back up the payments for. And then that gets practiced and then that gets research, so on and so forth. And we're just so far down the path, there's just no turning back. And that's why for so many years, so many doctors, etc., they're just not aware of all these different ways to improve sleep apnea. And that's why if we look at how much research there is on a CPAP, and these studies require money, a lot of money. I'm not sure if you've ever written a grant. It is the least fun thing ever. Nonetheless, 11,000 of these things. And if you look up sleep apnea and surgery, there will be about 17,000 results. If we look at natural things for sleep apnea, wow, 62 results. Or if we look at exercises like wiggling your tongue around or strengthening your lips, 206 results. Wow. Well, guess what? No one's ever going to really know about these things, and then insurance isn't going to give a ratatouille about it, and then it's not going to get practiced, and then everyone's just stuck on their CPAP. So doctors mean well. They are just stuck in a system that is going to guide their education, guide their practice, and everything else. And that's why it's so important for you to be out here learning for your health and be able to take action. Because here's the thing. You live in your body 24/7. And the more you're able to gain that empowerment for yourself of knowing what to do, that's when you get way more out of it and you're able to turn things like sleep apnea around. And that's why in my journey, I was able to continue to turn things around for myself because I was still having some bad days. And before we dive into this one, the fourth factor, I want to kindly remind you, make sure you stick around to the end. We're going to have a free guide that isn't just some sort of summary of everything, but instead allows you to take the information from this video and then get the most out of it. So I'll tell you about that in a little bit, but first, the environment. So what this is representing is the fact I realized when I had to travel, and I hate travel, I just really do. I hate being in cars and planes, and I love my dogs too much to actually ever go anywhere. But the point being is when I was going different places, sleeping different beds, and traveling for research and over at friends' places, all of that, I noticed big differences in my breathing in these different places. And that's what led me to think and isolate the environment as something that impacts my health. Now, there's hundreds of these factors, whether it is noise, whether it's chemicals, the water, air pollution, radiation from uranium or your cell phone, or climate change or pesticides, like all of these things. That's just scratching the surface of how your environment can impact your breathing. Because at the end of the day, if your airways are irritated by anything, they have this reaction here that will narrow the passageways in your respiratory system. Whenever something is more narrow, that makes your breathing faster, leads to more collapse. So that's why it's so important to hunt down all the different environmental factors. I will spare you the details of 100 different things that I went through and just give you one thing to do that I think can benefit mostly everyone, doesn't need a whole lot of individualization for it. It is getting some fresh air into your bedroom. I'm not talking about just putting a air purifier in the corner over there and having that weird noise going on the whole time, but instead bringing some real air, some like organic air, some air that's going to be extinct in 30 years the way the earth is going. That's a different discussion. But what I do want to talk about is that when you open your windows 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, that will actually clear out so many things that can be irritating your airways and causing this. Best thing about this, now, if you live in an area that has a lot of air pollution, you may want to just close these and have a lot of air purifiers around you. Just a little caveat for you. And for me, when I did this and many other environmental interventions, it continued to stack things in the right direction. Some things led to a huge shift in a relatively short amount of time. Some things, they just seem like a good idea on paper. So with environmental health, it's hard to stick with it because you don't always see the immediate results. But think about it like this. If you improve the quality of your air for 8 hours at night, do you think that's going to impact your breathing and thus your sleep? Yeah, it will. And you know it will. And I'm like doing this weird face scrunch over here for you. This is truth coming out. Now, why isn't this catching on? All these different factors. This is something I already hinted about before. But once again, in the modern world, it's a business. It's just a absolute business of where they're focused on profits, whether this is the global sleep apnea market, whether it is ResMed and their stocks rising up and up, whether it is the CEO of ResMed. And if you go to this guy's Twitter account, ResMed Mick, you will see he is featured more on financial shows than health shows. Here's him with Mad Money Jim Cramer. That's because it's a business about driving profit. They don't have a duty to you. They have a duty to their shareholders to be able to go in the meetings and show charts with green arrows that go up, always going up. That's their main outcome. Not getting you off these machines, not helping you reverse sleep apnea. And this has gotten to such a level that they are really unstoppable. And one of the biggest examples of this is the amount of profit these companies can accumulate and then get through these massive lawsuits like nothing happens. Philips put out a bunch of machines, they caused a lot of problems, and they just kept chugging along like nothing happened. In fact, when you consider this, they were able to handle a $1.1 billion settlement from a lawsuit from their machines causing bigger issues in people's health like lung cancer. $1.1 billion. That's not a small amount. That's not a trivial amount. A company has to be absolutely massive to tank that loss. But that's how big the industry has become. And that's why the focus isn't on natural solutions. It's about CPAP machines and bad money Jim Cramer. That's what it's about. And that's why I wanted to share these 5 ways in which you can continue to get to your 100% and not have to be part of all of that. So the 5th and final factor is your nervous system. And how it works is every single time you get woken up at night or you're not breathing, it's going to jolt you into a fight or flight nervous system response. And when that happens, you already know what happens. You breathe faster. When you're in a sympathetic state, your fight or flight, you're breathing faster. What happens when you have fast breathing? It leads to more pauses in breathing at night, nervous system in overdrive more, and you're stuck in this cycle. So that's why it's so important to calm down your nervous system, especially when your nervous system mediates a good chunk of the damage to your entire body in sleep apnea. Because when you activate your sympathetic nervous system, it's going to cause changes in your body that's bad for your brain, bad for your heart, and really every single thing. So the more you're able to calm that down, the better you're able to make progress, sleep better, and all of that. You can do a bunch of different mind-body practices. And when you look at the research behind this, they've only ever looked at Tai Chi, but they're all mind-body practices. They found that Tai Chi, during the daytime, was able to cut the severity of sleep apnea in half. That would make no sense if you didn't know about this. So that's why it's really important to have a good mind-body practice in place. And that's why I'm going to give you one in place. I call it the Nervous System Reset. It's a free MP3. That's actually included in the PDF guide, the Kickstart Your Breathing for Better Sleep Apnea PDF guide that not only gives you additional action steps to focus more on the breathing because it's one of the most important ones, but it also contains a link so that you can download this Nervous System Reset and start making even more progress today. So to get it, all you gotta do is either click up here, there should be a button, or click the link in the description to grab it. That's all you gotta do to get your free PDF guide, so make sure that you go ahead and do that. And something else you can do, because I'm always looking to help improve your sleep apnea, and that's why in the next episode, I wanna talk about sleep hygiene for sleep apnea. If that video is available, I'll probably put it over my face because you've seen me enough, and you can just click that. If not, make sure you go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss out on that episode. Either way, you're a winner and a rock star for being here. Make sure that you get your PDF, and I'm wishing you the best in your health journey with sleep apnea. I'm Dr. Dylan Peckus, and I'll see you soon.